The words "not always so" make me bristle. Just 3 words, yet they pierce the armor of my small mind. They disarm the mechanism that pretends to be in control. Because I know, we know, in our bones, in our breath, that in any situation, things are not always so. Not always so is another way of saying things change. That is the nature of impermanence. And yet I cling to my past as I project into the future. My mind wants things not to change. It wants life to be dependable, repeatable, like a machine that responds to my inputs. But life is not like that. At any moment, things can change dramatically for any of us. A phone call, a diagnosis, a word, a glance, and everything is different. We don't know what will happen in the next moment, and yet we live under the delusion that we do. Our mind busily plans what to do, reassures us that there will be a next moment, and that this I, this identity, this tangible person will be there to meet it. But that is just another delusion of the small mind. This is how we suffer. We suffer because we relate to life with the wrong view. The wrong view is our attachment to permanence, our resistance to change, our deep yearning for things to stay the same, wanting things to be different than they are, or to become the way we want them to be. Our suffering arises from clinging to identities, clinging to stories, clinging to feelings and hopes. We are like someone grasping at clouds, hoping they'll stay still. Letting go is not a strategy. It is not an act of the will. It is what happens when we meet the moment fully, when we release our grip and allow reality to be just as it is. So we practice moving past the illusion of control. We move past the illusion that we control our breath. We move past the illusion that we control our thoughts. In doing so, we are invited to step beyond the small mind and its fixed ideas, its fantasies of mastery, control, and superiority. We begin to harmonize with all things. This is not a conceptual, intellectual harmony, but a visceral, breathing harmony with this moment, just as it is. This is the path of liberation. This is where fear dissolves, not because it is conquered, but because it is held gently within the spaciousness of awareness. When we allow our breath to be just the breath, when we allow thoughts to come and go without holding on, when we no longer try to squeeze certainty from an uncertain world, this is our practice. This is faith. And then we let it go. Let it all go. We can't retain joy from the previous breath. We can't stockpile peace for later. We cannot negotiate a mental path to liberation. We must each moment be complete in itself. We meet it and release it like each breath. It's empty. This moment, this breath, there's nothing to achieve, obtain, or retain. With each breath, we are pushed forward into the darkness, into not knowing, into boundlessness. There is no map for this territory. This is mental green space, and we walk it together. When we cease striving to hold on, we realize we were never separate. Our shared interspace, the connection between your breath and mine, between my consciousness and yours, this creates interbeing. Dogen Zenji said, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to let go of the clinging that makes me so solid. It is to trust that we are already home, not in the past, not in the future, but in this fleeting, flickering now. Suzuki Roshi said, even though you think you understand, if you say, I understand Buddhism, that is already a misunderstanding. Not always so. It is not always so. That is what we mean. Not always so challenges our desire for control, certainty, and self-importance. But it is also the very medicine that heals us from suffering by reminding us to meet life with openness, compassion, and deep attention. Things are not always so. They are just this. And this, just as it is enough. Any questions? Yes.
Is the act of letting go, it's not a concept that we strive for, or is it just a natural understanding of what we need to do? I mean, in a sense, it's like, oh, I must let go, I must let go, I must let go. Or is it just letting what we naturally would do? It's a natural response, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not intentional, it's not intellectual. It's a release into ourselves. There's nothing attainable. It's our most natural form. So it's Zazen. It's the crystallization of Zazen. It's letting go. It's the perfection of Zazen. John?
Just, thank you, by the way. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed the talk.
Thanks, John. I can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear
I
me?
can.
Okay. I'm closer now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
So I just want to say thank you. Great talk. And you just said something that I had heard from a teacher actually just recently, and I don't know that this concept really was ever taught to me or if I knew it, but I think it's definitely a misconception, and that is that letting go doesn't mean to try and release or separate ourselves from whatever it is. it rather is a release into ourselves, where rather than letting it go from and separating ourselves from it, it's more so transforming it from being whatever it is wanting, for lack of a better word, to be, and trying to direct it and to put it in a different space. Is that correct?
Well, since we're born, we're filling that space with stuff, and then we're trying to let that go, and there's a friction if we actively do it. The letting go is just coming back into that space. There's no friction. It's who we always were. So it's just a release into ourselves, finding ourselves over and over and over again in the breath, in the most gentle way, with no intellectual component. Because this predates the formation of our intellect. So just bring the breath.
Back to Juan. Thank you.
Spencer, thank you for that very on point talk.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say that I think letting go is not a willful act on our part. It's kind of like if you're sitting and watching boxcars come by on a train, you let go of the one that passed you just so you can see the one that's coming. It's more of a keeping up with the time rather than willfully deciding to do something. So non-clinging is just releasing the moment that's passing in order to see what's happening in the present moment. Otherwise, you spend all your time hanging on to the past moment, which is not going to help anything. So I think the not always so point was very well made by Spencer. That everyone that comes by, if you think you're going to be like the one that passed, you may find, as he said, it's not always so. But that's an interesting point that keeps us alert so that we don't sleep our way through practice. If we want to see what's really happening, we keep our mind alert to what's coming. And that's the easy part. It's a hard time when you just want to live in the past. Like if I want to just keep going back to memories of Peter, it's satisfying only in an emotional sense. It doesn't help my practice in any way, clinging to his past, which is already gone. So it's like trying to live in the present is accepting that he's a picture now on the thing rather than sitting on the cushion. But in that case, it may be a particularly good thing, but who knows? It's a past moment, and it's whatever's coming is good, like a zazen kai coming up. If I hang on to the picture of Peter, I can't do any zazen. So I think it's just not willfully deciding to do something with your life. It's more just keeping up with the flow.
So is it fair to say letting go really just comes down to shaking off our looking backwards and according with reality?
Yeah, just staying at the present. Like not letting what's coming past be muddied by what's past. And the not always so is the letting the past go past and letting the present be fully what it is without muddying it with a past picture on our brain. I think not always so is a really important part of our practice. So thank you, Spencer. That was a very good talk.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking my words today.
No, no words. Steve? You're muted.
You think after all this time I'd know where to push the button, but get a little nervous and confused when I want to talk. But I want to tell you that in describing everybody's stuff, you described me to a T, and I appreciate that because what it did is make me feel, instead of separate of everybody, the same as everybody. And it truly touched me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Great talk.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Rachel?
Thanks, Spencer. Since letting go is, by your words and others' words, not a matter of will. Therefore, the human mind, which has to be employed in backwards looking and forwards looking in order to make the mind a tool to function. Is it somewhat of an alchemy to just continue to return and again, as it were, to Zazen, on the cushion and off the cushion, until the letting go, you might say relentlessly, fruitlessly trying to control, that when you return often enough and then you finally actually do relent trying the control, then there really is a relinquishing that's not of the will or control, but really is naturally a consequence of living and sitting.
Yes, I mean, it's not willful, as Jane said. Thoughts arise constantly and you could let them go. But, what arises before the thought? What's that conditioning? What's that emotion? Do you feel it in your body? That's sort of, and it's constant. So you got to be aware something's going on. And those thoughts think themselves, but they usually originate somewhere. And if you're feeling uneasy, before you have that thought, you might have some agitation in your stomach, somewhere in your body, and it'll turn into something, a memory. Let it go. And it's very passive how you let it go. You can't fight it actively, right? This is our possibly generational trauma, our DNA encoding, fight or flight. It comes up. It doesn't come up as words. Let it go, because it will become words. It's constant. And that's our true condition. Just letting it go. Don't let any of that manifest. It's all empty. Thank you, Rachel. I hope I didn't lose anyone on that piece, but. Mitch?
Mitch is, yeah.
You're muted, Mitch. Now you've got the Alvin and the Chipmunks voice.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go there. He did a bunch. Alright, well, in the meantime, I had a question.
Hold on, Mitch. No, I can't hear you now, Mitch.
I did that.
I can't hear you now. Yeah, you're still like, you're still Chipmunk Roshi.
It's only ever happened to Mitch. And you have no idea what caused it.
Could you sing, Mitch, could you sing I'll Be Home for Christmas?
I will take it.
All right. When you get it fixed, Mitch, we'll come back to you. We can't hear you.
We'll have no idea.
Chris?
It's fixed. Jane's comment reminded me of the quote that says something like, or maybe it wasn't Jane's comment, it was John's question. Well, anyways, somewhere in there, it called to mind the quote that I've heard, which is something like, we may think that the opposite of attachment is detachment, but actually it's intimacy. And yeah, it was John's question made me think of that because, yeah, we think that letting go of something means putting distance between ourselves and it, but in a way it makes us closer to it because we are no longer, because we've never clinged to it, all we're clinging to is our idea of it, and we're insisting on the idea rather than the genuine article. And I think that that pairs very well, if not always so, if we're actually letting go of the present moment of our attachments and trying to accord with the present moment, as Jane said, that's an actual appreciation of not always so. I think a lot of people, maybe, probably I'm guilty of this, will sort of say, yes, not always so, until we come up to an actual real bout of suffering, and then we'll make ourselves suffer because we're not really according with not always so in those moments. I did not hit upon a question just now. I
No,
apologize.
you made a good point. There is an intimacy, and it's not active. Hold on, Mitch, you're still chipmunking on us, so you need to you need to probably log off and log back in.
Slow it down.
Give that a try.
You're really cute like that,
And
Mitch.
you got to look up the recording when this gets on YouTube because it's pretty funny.
Spencer?
Still can't-
Oh, that's not how he heard us today.
All right. All right.
Okay, he went away.
Spencer, real quick?
Yes, Mike.
Is not only so a form of not judging something, not being attached to an idea of judging a situation or something, you just let it flow, you just let it happen.
Things change. Not always so. That's, that would be like a capping verse. Yeah. Getting back to, the intimacy, it's about falling back into ourselves. There are so many manifestations of ego that we delude ourselves and delude ourselves and delude ourselves and delude ourselves, and we're still in that egoic state. But the intimacy of falling back in ourselves is lush, and we can keep doing the same thing. It's just not the strain and friction that you have on the egoic side. There's no effort. It's intimate.
The self you're talking about falling into, that's the big self.
It's you. It's the bigger self. It's your Buddha nature.
How's this sound? Any better?
Better.
Hey! Yes, Mitch.
I forgot what the hell I was going to say.
Well,
No, seriously, I was reading the Lankavatara Sutra. I'm going back over some of the old sutras that I read in a long
Did you say the Heart Sutra or the Karma Sutra?
Lankavatara.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
I misheard.
and you touched on something, and that came up in my thinking about reading some of the passages, and I think you touched on it. I didn't process it fast enough. So letting go. How does letting go? How does not discrimination and giving up all our judgments? How does that relieve our suffering? Or why do those judgments and everything make us suffer, or is a part of our suffering? But I mean, it's all through. I think for me, it's like connected through the skandhas and all that kind of stuff. That we don't perceive the world as you know,
As it,
we perceive the relative world instead of the absolute world, right? So, but how does that? I think you mentioned. I think you said something during the talk that made that made that leap, that gap, fill that gap.
how does suffering and fear, letting go?
No. Discriminations and judgments cause us to suffer, do they not? I mean,
Right, but that they're all affiliations to the self. So it all starts with the self, this identity, this wanting to be right, this tangible form of the self that we create that causes friction in our lives with others, with our wives, because
Yeah.
it takes a position like it exists. And everything that your mind tells you is empty. So it's all malleable. You could let it all go. There's nothing tangible. There's not a position in your brain that you can't move off of. Even the things that you believe are true, like colors, are not true.
I understand.
They're not.
They're all empty.
Right.
They're all empty.
But they're all empty. They're all affiliated with the self. So when you cling to the self, you're creating friction between you and this moment.
Something we do constantly, and it's like playing bumper cars with reality, right? But how does that, if just that letting go in itself is going to cause us less angst in our life? Is that as simple? Is it simple as that?
Yeah. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as, be here now. And if you could be here in this moment, you're not thinking about your suffering. You're not ruminating about something that happened in the past. You're not projecting what you're going to do in the future. You're not planning. You're not lamenting. You're here now. So all of that suffering, all of the machinery of suffering is staved.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm probably overly complicating it. So
Well,
that's okay.
it's very simple. Let it go. And you gotta believe it works, Mitch.
No, I've experienced that it works, and I understand. I that's my practice, is to not to discriminate, not to judge, to accept everything that comes in as it is, and not have to hash it out and everything. I understand. It makes my life. One thing I discovered about that many years ago is that takes up a whole lot of energy.
Yeah.
To do that, and you can put that energy to something else rather than like the cycles over and over and over again. It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy.
It takes a lot of energy, but what I would challenge you to do is when you run up against that ego, tell yourself to do the most compassionate thing and feel where that comes up in your body. If it's someone you don't like and you have to do something kind, feel that. And that's what you have to let go.
Well, Jane taught me that a long time ago about feelings and how constantly that goes up and down and up and down. So,
well, that's the interjection of the ego, and that's what you have to dispel.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel?
When Jane brought up the boxcar, because it used to be you could have miles and miles of boxcars, and that's not so true anymore. And I haven't noticed in anyone else, much less myself, the ability to let go or relinquish once and for all, and that there's an ebb and a flow. And at a certain point, in practice. It's like intimacy. Intimacy can stop being personal. It's experienced, and that I suppose is personal, but it when it doesn't have the grip of the ego, it's like you can feel sorrow, but it can ebb and flow. It can cease and arise. Because if you're not gripping it, it does ebb and flow depending on what's going on around and within. And to me, and you can say if this is goofy, to even reach, for me, to even reach the point where it is like boxcars. It comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes. It informs, and then it becomes something else. I'll take that. It might not be enlightenment, but it's the ability to find within or notice within, not clinging. In other words, not letting go, but you notice you're not clinging. It arises, it ebbs and flows. I'd put it that way. And that it may still be present, like sorrow, but when it's not clung to, it's not, 24/7 misery. It responds to what is going on within and without.
We're all going to suffer, okay? And it's not like we could but when we say let go, it means we're not attaching to it. We're not adding to it. We see things as they are. We feel it arise. There's great suffering that we witness or arises. We feel it. We feel it. Can't let that go. But we don't attach to it. We don't put opinions to it. We don't see things through the wrong view of affiliations. We let it go. We let that go. And that's the hard thing. It's easy to let small, thoughts go, emotions go that course through us through the day, that fight or flight, that wanting to be right. But when there's real pain, real suffering in our lives, that's when we need the practice. And that's where we see it, and then we let it go. We identify it, but we're not branding it. We're not identifying with it. We're not remembering it. We're just saying, oh, here it is. Goodbye. And understand it. It might be something really heartfelt, but you don't need it. It might arise again, and you could acknowledge it. So thank you, Rachel.
Maybe they have time for one more question.
Is there one more question? Sandy. You're muted, dear. Okay.
I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started practicing, it was like a small while before Jane. It was either Jane or Peter. I can't remember who discussed with me letting go. That process, and for a long time, it was kind of hard to let go. Sometimes it was very difficult, that things seemed to cling because I had the expectation, or my ego, that I could let go of them at any time. It's just something I could do, and it was a delusion. And then I remember one time I sat, and for the entire time, the entire half hour, there wasn't one thought in my head. My head was totally quiet. Um, and it was the most, it was kind of like refreshing, you know, with a ice cold soda, that after the end of the sitting, that if we could be like that, where we could just be in a, you know, in a setting of just being, and not having to well, we have these thoughts come through. We're not going to be able to stop that process, but we take that process to the point of, we kind of grab onto the thought or the whatever it is, and we have to study it to make sure, is this something I want to grasp onto? Is this something that has meaning that I need to find? And those two are delusions. And I've found that, you know, after sitting again, I didn't have that kind of a experience for a very long time after. But it seemed like that the mind, or that's producing these thoughts, is almost machine-like, and it's just going to continue doing it over and over and over and over again. But then I also had the realization that if I can't eventually let go when I need to, I'm going to miss out on my life and on being, you know, being alive, because being alive, if we're grasping on to all these things that are happening around us, you don't have time to experience life. You can't get to that point where you're open enough that you can just be there, you know, and experience what comes in. And so I found it was more and more important that I actually experience letting go. But it was a long, long process before I could, before I realized that I was doing letting go every day during my day, that it had become like second nature. That because if I couldn't let go of it, and I couldn't just move on in time and space, and then my life was like a big kind of void with nothing, no earth, no trees, no experiences, no wonder, no love, no any of that, because I was so clung to these thoughts coming in. There was no time to let go even, because they had become so important in my life. And that's all there was this clinging. And so after that, after I started realizing that I was slowly starting to actually let go, my life got, it's not that, I'm not going to say it got less painful, but because we're still going to experience things that, you know, are hurt or are painful. It's that it kind of like opened up. It was like, you know, say it had been raining all the time, and you woke up one day and you walked outside and the sun was shining. It was kind of like that. It was like almost like my life expanded.
Well, Sandy, thank you. That was the wonderful closing, explaining to everyone that this letting go process can happen anytime in anyone's practice. And you had this opening that you were describing, this awakening, right? And your life changed afterward. You had more insight into this. And this is exactly what the Dharma talk was about. So, this is, the Zazen in reality is like, we might have bad sittings, we might have good sittings. Sandy's sitting that day was profound and impacted the rest of her life. So that's why we sit. Thank you.
You. And thank you for the talk.
Thank you.